I'd like everybody in the audience to take a deep breath. Thank you. I wasn't quite sure you were out there. For the last year, I've been in a women's group using the books of Brené Brown, Daring Greatly and Rising Strong. Her premise is that to lead a courageous life and rise strong, you have to be in the arena, and you can't sit on the sidelines or in the stands. And if you're in the arena, you're going to be seen, and you're going to be participating in your life. I never thought of myself as courageous or brave. I just got through what I got through because I had to get through it to live. But tonight, I want to embrace my brave self by sharing my story, my journey, and I want to be seen. And this is why. I was born the month after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and so you don't have to try and figure that out. I'll be 75 in January. My father was in the Air Force, so I came home from the hospital to a very frightened mother and a 6-year-old half-sister. My sister was a special needs child who did not speak and still wore diapers. Because my parents were afraid she might hurt me, she was put in a state hospital and died there 3 months later. My mother was devastated and really could not mother me as she dealt with her grief. And I was always told that she was put there because of me, so I grew up with the guilt of my sister's death and my mother's sadness. My father came home from the service when I was 3, and the incest started. At first it was just touching, but then it got worse. My father went back in the service and was stationed in Japan, and he left when I was 8 years old, returning when I was 10. The incest started again and continued into my teen years, mostly just by grabbing me when I was in the shower or touching me inappropriately whenever he got close. My parents were also both alcoholics and fought a lot, screaming and throwing things, and just really making life pretty miserable. Because my father was still in the Air Force, we moved around a lot, and I was always the new kid in the class and didn't know anyone. Because of all this, I was a very shy kid and tried to stay out of sight and stayed in the background. I tried to become invisible, not wanting to cause trouble, and never speaking up. In 3rd grade, I even got a reward from my teacher for being the quietest girl in the class. Now that might be a red flag, but then it wasn't. I was a good student and got good grades because I loved school and I was safe there. I got married when I was 23 to a nice, gentle man. I have 2 grown sons and 4 grandchildren. In the early years of my marriage, I started gaining weight because I thought it made me invisible again and I could stay in the background. When I got up to 240 pounds, I finally decided I didn't want to keep hiding, and I wanted to be seen, and I was afraid I was losing myself. Even with my family around, I felt lonely and I still wanted to be seen. I joined Weight Watchers, started walking, and lost 120 pounds, and I lectured for them for a while. I was happy with that weight loss, but I realized that it didn't really solve all my problems and fears. I still felt like I had a dark cloud hanging over my head. In 1986, we lost our house in a fire. No one was hurt, but I lost many memories, many meaningful things and many memories. The house didn't burn down, but it was gutted and everything inside was destroyed. It was destroyed by either fire, smoke, or water. I don't know if you've ever seen, but firemen throw everything out that's not burning, so it was either damaged, smoke-filled, or waterlogged. I sat for many days in that dark shell making a list of all the things that we lost for the insurance company. We could replace things like furniture and clothes, but I still felt empty, and it was a difficult time as we tried to rebuild our lives and I tried to find myself. This was a turning point for me because I knew I had to now do something. We decided to start over and we moved to Arizona. I got into therapy and began to look at all the secrets and the guilt and pain I carried. Both sons got married and had grandchildren. Well, my grandchildren, it was their children. But my marriage started to fall apart as we struggled financially and declared bankruptcy. My husband was and still is a good man, but he was married to somebody he didn't recognize anymore. I was no longer the girl he married. I didn't sound the same, and I didn't look the same. I was gaining power, and he told me he didn't want to be married to a strong woman. Because I wanted a fresh start, I moved to Greeley in 1998 because I had a friend here. I left a job, family, and old friends, and I came with nothing, no savings, no credit, no money. Even with all the changes and the growth, I still felt that I wasn't quite where I wanted to be. The divorce was final a few months after I moved here, and I felt like a failure, and I began to hide again. I would come home from work and sit in my dark living room with the blinds closed and just be quietly sitting there. One day I realized I was either keeping the world out or myself in. I decided I didn't want to be invisible. I was losing myself. I couldn't live that way any longer. So I came out from behind the curtains. I volunteered at United Way, downtown functions, and became involved in my community. Later, I volunteered for Senior Resource Services and became a CASA volunteer, which is a court-appointed special advocate for children. I woke up one morning and said I need to buy a house. I qualified for a special program and made that happen. I had support from my women's group, family, and friends, and I stopped feeling like a victim and forgave my parents. I was named Volunteer of the Year in 2013 and Woman of Distinction in 2014. I continue to walk and meditate daily, and I live with courage and joy, and sometimes I do feel like sitting in the stands, but most of the time I'm in that arena. I do get muddy, but I do get up. There are others there with me that help and give me a helping hand, and I know 4 things. I'm courageous, I'm brave, I'm not invisible, and I did not disappear.